I have worked hospital security for 11 years, and I can tell you the exact moment a situation goes from bad to unrecoverable. It is not when the first call comes in. It is when the people who are supposed to fix it stop moving. That night, the call came at 2:14 a.m. A man named Gerald Pruitt, former private military contractor, 3 years out of work, 6 months off his medication, had walked through the side entrance of Harwick Memorial with a pistol under his coat. He made it to the 4th floor ICU before anyone knew what was happening. By the time I reached the corridor, he had backed himself into Bay 7 with a 63-year-old patient named Mr. Estes and a young nursing aide named Becca. The door was shut. I could see them through the glass panel. Pruitt against the far wall, weapon raised, Becca with her hands up, and Mr. Estes flat in his bed, cardiac monitor still running, IV still dripping. SWAT arrived in 14 minutes. Commander Thad Reese was a big man, capable, decorated. He set up his team in the corridor, outside Bay 7. 4 officers on the door, 2 on the flanking windows, and started talking over the intercom. It was not listening. Every time Reese's voice came over the speaker, Pruitt turned and shoved the weapon harder toward the ceiling, and Becca pressed herself against the wall. I was standing 6 feet behind the stack when I noticed her. She had come out of the nurse's station at the far end of the corridor, walking toward us at a pace that was neither hurried nor casual. It was something else, the walk of someone taking inventory. She was in navy scrubs, badge on a lanyard, stethoscope over her shoulder, late 20s, dark hair pulled tight. I had seen us on shift before, but could not have told you her name. The name on her badge read Caswell, L. She stopped just behind the SWAT line and stood there, watching Bay 7 through the glass with an expression I did not recognize at the time. I know what to call it now, assessment. Commander Reese glanced back and saw her. "Ma'am, I need you behind the fire doors now." She did not move. Eyes stayed on Pruitt through the glass. "How long has he been elevated like that?" "Ma'am." His hands are shaking. His breathing has changed in the last 2 minutes. "If you push him with the intercom again, you are going to lose the room." She said it quietly, not arguing, informing. Reese looked at her the way a man looks at someone who has just given him directions to a place he has never heard of. "Stand back," he said. "This is a police situation." She looked at him for 1 moment. Then she stepped around him and opened the door to Bay 7. I heard Reese say, "Hey," and then she was inside. What happened next, I watched through the glass. She did not rush Pruitt. She did not raise her hands in surrender. She stepped inside and stood still, and she let him see her. The stethoscope, the badge, the scrubs, and then she said, in a voice so even it sounded like weather, "Mr. Pruitt, I'm a nurse. I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here because that man in the bed needs his IV adjusted, and I can't do it from the hallway." Pruitt swung the weapon toward her. She did not flinch. She tilted her head slightly and said, "I'm going to walk to the IV stand, and I'm going to check his line. I'm not going to move towards you. You can watch every step I take." I do not know what Pruitt saw in her face. I know what I saw from the corridor. I am a woman who had decided the outcome of the next 60 seconds and was simply waiting for the room to catch up. She moved to the IV stand, adjusted the drip. Then she looked at the cardiac monitor, and something shifted in her posture. She turned toward Mr. Estes and leaned over him, fingers going to his wrist, then to his neck. She said something to Pruitt. I couldn't hear the words through the glass. Whatever she said, he lowered the weapon 2 inches. Later, Becca told me what she said. She told Pruitt that Mr. Estes had served in Korea, that he had a daughter who was driving from 3 states away right now, tonight, and that, if Pruitt left this room without letting her treat him, that daughter would arrive to a funeral instead of a hospital. She said it without drama. She said it the way a person states a forecast. Then she turned back to the bed, reached into her scrub pocket, and pulled out an IV kit. She had carried it in. She had known, before she walked through the door, what she was going to need. Mr. Estes had thrown a small clot. His pressure was dropping. I found this out afterward. What I saw through the glass was a nurse working on a patient with the kind of efficiency that makes everyone else in the irrelevant, smooth, certain, nothing wasted, while a man with a loaded weapon stood 8 feet away. At one point, Pruitt sat down on the floor. I am not sure he was even aware he had done it. In 11 minutes, she had the situation stable. Becca positioned near the door, Pruitt with his weapon on the floor beside him. When she turned and gave a single short nod toward the glass, Reese sent his team through the door. I was still standing in the corridor. I could not have told you what I had just watched. I knew what it looked like. I could not find the category. The liaison officer arrived while Reese's team was securing Pruitt. He was a lean man in civilian clothes with a military bearing that had never fully come off, and he came down the corridor with a radio in his hand, wearing an expression like someone who had just caught a word in a foreign language he did not expect to hear. He stopped one of the paramedics who had patched into the hospital's tactical frequency during the event. Was talking to the patient in Bay 7, he asked. The woman on this channel. What is her name? The paramedic pointed at her. She was standing near the nurse's station, writing in a chart. The liaison officer walked toward her. He stopped. He looked at her badge, and then he said, in a voice the whole corridor could hear, "Patron." She looked up from the chart. He said it again, differently, not a question. Recognition. Your patron. Joint Surgical Team Kandahar, 09 through 12. You held a casualty collection point for 4 hours with 2 medics down and kept 9 men alive. She held his gaze for a moment and said nothing. He turned to face the corridor. His voice carried. This woman is a decorated Special Operations Trauma Medic. 3 deployments. Valor Commendation. 2nd deployment. She held a forward CCP under fire and did not lose a single patient. He stopped then. Every person in this hallway owes her at least that much. The corridor had perhaps 40 people in it. Paramedics, nurses, officers. A handful of patients who had drifted out of their rooms when the commotion started. And veterans. Harwick's ICU ran a VA partnership wing, and it was never empty. I don't know who went first. I think it was one of the older officers near the far end of the hall, a man with a service ribbon on his uniform. But within 4 seconds the corridor had gone still, and the men who had served were standing at attention, and the ones who hadn't were standing straight out of something they didn't fully understand, couldn't argue with. Commander Reese was standing 3 feet from me. He looked at her. He looked at his officers. He looked back at her. He did not speak. There was nothing to say. She had walked through a door he could not open. And she had come out with a man's life on the right side of the line, and the world that already knew who she was had simply arrived to confirm it. She finished her chart note. She capped her pen. Then she walked back down the corridor to check on her other patients. The same steady pace as before, and the hallway parted for her without anyone deciding to do it. I have stood at a lot of doors in 11 years. I have never felt as small standing behind one as I did that night. And I have never been more grateful that somebody else had the nerve to open it.